Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Talk with Sorintan Hauray. Today we'll be discussing about the ongoing issues of Manipur, the ethnic conflict which has been happening since the 3rd of May 2023. I have three special guests with me this evening who will be discussing about the issues, especially on the separate administration, which has been demanded by the Kuki-Zou community, and of course the other issues which we have been facing, especially to the youths of Manipur, directly or indirectly affected by this ongoing conflict. All right, I would like to introduce you the three special guests which who have joined me in this episode, and then let us proceed with the discussion. First of all, I have here Mr. Ranson Kundrakpam. At the moment, he is in Ashoka University, Sonepat. He is the founder of Kihom. And I have Mr. Thaminlel Dongyal. He is a research scholar based in Delhi and also the vice president of Cookie Students Organization Admin, Delhi. And lastly, but not the least, I have Mr. Peter Adani. He is the founder of Hills Hornbill Express based in Senapati. Welcome to the show, to the three gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking out your precious time and joining me in this special episode. Thank you so much. All right, like I've said in the beginning, our discussion will be mainly focused on the separate administration. But later in the discussion we can discuss about something as well. I mean, some other topics as well. But first of all, we'd like to get to understand what this separate administration means, why this has been the demand for the Kuki-Zou community, so on and so forth. So first of all, I'd like to ask Mr. Tamindel Dongel, Lawboy, what really is the separate administration being demanded by your community? We would like to understand what exactly does this word separate administration mean, because most of us might not completely understand where this comes from, what it exactly means. Does it mean breaking away from Manipur? Is it just for the economic autonomy, or just the administration which has to be different for the cookie dominated areas? What exactly is the demand being brought up by the cookie Zou community? Please take your time.
Okay, thank you. That's a very important question to address. Separate administration, many a times, can mean many different things. But in the case of, say, the demand of the Kuki-Zou community in Manipur, in the context of this violence and the conflict, is separate administration in the form of union territory with legislature, as per Article 239A of the Indian Constitution. So 239A of the Indian Constitution empowers the Union Parliament to actually create a state or otherwise a union territory. For example, the union territory created because of this provision is Puducherry. And in fact, the demand is in the model of Puducherry. Why Puducherry? Is because if you see, Puducherry comprises of around four four regions like, say, Mahe, Yanam, Karaikal, and Puducherry. In fact, four. So if you see these, say, these places, they're not confined to one single area. Meaning, uh, Yanam is in, I think if I'm not mistaken, in Andhra Pradesh, and then one is in Kerala, another Puducherry and Karaikal, if I'm not mistaken, are in Tamil Nadu. So I may be wrong. Okay, I'm not really. I mean, I cannot recall the exact places right now where they are located. But then these four places are not contiguous. Okay, they are situated. Two of them are situated in different states, Kerala and Andhra Pradesh. Now, why that model is being demanded is because if you look at um, say the topography of Manipur, that is say dominated by the Kuki-Zou community. You have Kachuricham, of course, is concentrated, dominated by the Kuki-Zou community. But then you have in say in Kangpopi, you have certain pockets which are inhabited by our Naga brethren, right? Say, I'll take for example, you have say Tikolen. Tikolen is also a very big area, but then it's within the Kangpopi district, Sai 2 constituency for that matter. And there are other areas as well. And then you have, say, Kuki areas in Kamzong district. And then there are in Chandil district. Then there are in, Tengnopal district as well. So considering the, say, the non-contiguous, inhabited areas of the Kukis, if Puducherry can also be created as a union territory because of the cultural, similarity, because this, if I'm not mistaken, was the colony of the Portuguese people, of the Portuguese or French. I can't recall right now, but then these are areas which were, I mean, clubbed together because of the cultural affiliations,
Okay.
and the fact that the Kuki people, the Kuki-Zou people, have similar culture, tradition, all of these things. Considering all these
Okay.
similarities,
All right.
although it may not
Thank
be
you.
continued
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
by.
Thank you for sharing the basic of the separate administration. But why do you think separate administration is the solution to end this conflict? Why do you think the Kuki-Zou community wants a separate administration? Why do you want a union territory with a legislature?
Okay, let me come to the point in short. Why it is because now that we have been physically separated, geographically separated, emotionally separated, like it or not, we have been separated. So separate administration is demanded because it is, I think, the only solace that the Kuki people, the Kuki-Zou people, because of the sufferings that they have endured, because of the conflict, I think this is the only antidote to their pain and suffering. Why separate administration is compulsory or otherwise important, necessary, is because that will allow us to rebuild ourselves. Now that I'm not saying that remaining within the umbrella of Manipur, we will not rebuild ourselves, but then we have seen the history of how Article 371C has been, toyed around, and how Hill Area Committee has been toothless thus far, and how the state government has, since 1971, has throttled or otherwise trampled, the provisions which are meant for the hill people. So considering the historical injustices that we have suffered politically, economically, all of these things, I think now that we have been separated, why not give the Kuki-Zou people, I mean, the separate administration for them to rebuild,
Okay.
and of course live together as good neighbors and thrive together. That's
Okay.
the main reason
Okay.
why we are demanding for separate
All right.
administration.
Wait. Thank you so much for sharing your opinion. I'll come back to you in a while. Um, Ranson, I'd like to ask you the same question which I have asked to Lal Boy. Why do you think the Kuki-Zou community are asking for demanding for a separate administration, and if it's legitimate or if it's deserving for this community to ask for a separate administration, or do you think there's an alternative to what their demand is?
Am I audible now?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Legitimate or deserving, that's up to the Indian state to decide. That's not for me. But I think a political demand like separate administration, which was in the form of uh, separate state, union territory, which comes in various forms, like sixth schedule. So I think the demand has been very diverse, and I think the demand for union territory is very recent. I'm not very sure about that, but I think I've seen like various forms of this separate administration, like the demands made by political sections of the Kuki community. So I think, to me, demanding a territory based on communal lines, ethnic line, is not very progressive. I think it's like going back to 70s, 60s, and even the Indian Constitution when the State Reorganization Committee was set. The formation of state was on the basis of language, not should be on ethnicities or community lines, because it will rather push us back to think on only ethnic terms, ethnocentric demands. So I think it's very regressive in many ways. Then
Okay.
on another way, I want to talk about whenever ethnic conflict happens. For imagine Kuki Tamilkan classes, Kuki Naga classes, or Kuki Paite classes. then whenever there is ethnic demand or ethnic classes, do you think separate administration would be the solution? For example, let's imagine, supposedly if Kuki-Zou got the separate administration, what if sometime in the future, maybe if there happens to be a clash between them, what if Paite demands separate administration or larger? And for now, I think it will rather lead to another bloodshed, not necessarily with the Mites, but with the Nagas also, because there is overlaps or clash of territories, which is like, I mean, a cycle of violence will be repeating. So I think it's very uh, dangerous to demand territory based on ethnicity. And I think if, like, for example, when the Kuki Naga clashes happened, Mites were helping the Cookies in 2001 too. I mean, and if like, so Mites and Cookies were like that. So once two communities who used to fight like that and keep like, so for Nagas and Cookies who used to fight in the 90s, late 90s, now living like together, which is possible. And if Mites used to help Cookies at that point of time, now are fighting them. So it wouldn't be like, it's very, I don't know, it's like very, it's not reasonable to say that we will be always like in the future. So I think, I mean, it's not sensible. Like legitimacy or deserving is, it's a political demand and it's for every person or every community to make. But according to me, it's very ethnocentric, and it's like, so based on the Indian state, based on the constitution, based on the state, there is no proper institutional mechanism, proper structure to address our grievances. So when Mites think about their grievances, when they demand ST, they have to go through the constitution. So does the Cookies, so does Mites. So there is class of interest aspirations among them, which lead to further classes among them. So I think the way forward should be come to a dialogue. First, the violence has to stop. And for violence to stop, if you say giving separate administration is a solution, I think it's like, it's very dangerous.
Okay.
First, the violence has to stop. Then we come to a dialogue, and there should be proper administrative rearrangements
Okay.
along with all the stakeholders, all the communities living together in Manipur.
Okay. Thank
That
you,
would be
Renson. Thank you for sharing your opinion. I'd like to ask you a supplementary question. Uh, when the NSCNIM and the government of India, when the agreement was that the ceasefire extension, the ceasefire agreement which they signed was extended to Manipur, the Meitei
mm,
community protested against it,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
And then that was just for a ceasefire extension, right, to the
yes,
territory of Manipur. Now the Kuki-Zou
yes.
community is asking for a separate administration. Do you think the Meitei community will accept this demand of the Kuki-Zou community? What do you think? I mean, if in case this was the arrangement with the government of India, what do you think the Meitei community will take? I mean, any kind of actions. What do you think they will take up?
I think there will be bloodshed, not only with the Mites, but with other communities also. Like, for example, just suppose if Mites and Pangals are having ethnic class, and if each of the community are starting to ask separate administration like for each of them, then it's very difficult, because now though it's like there is segregation of the people, transfer of population, but every time when Hindus and Muslims used to fight in other parts of India, it's not reasonable for segregate Hindus and Muslims and give different states for either for Hindus and either for Muslims. So it's like the same case can be applied to Manipur. So I think, so there is a one treaty of Jiri which I found in, so I was reading up some research articles. So this Treaty of Jiri, which was signed in 1833 by Maharaj Gambhir and British Commissioner F.C. Grant, so it protects Manipur boundaries. So boundary was, according to the Article 1 of that Jiri Treaty, it reaches the Jiri River, and on the eastern side, it reaches the Chinwin River. And this was a boundary that also recognized by the government of Burma and by the government of India also. And there is principle of like objectivity of treaties. I'm not sure about the term, but even in the 1826, the Treaty of Yandabu also recognized the Manipur's independence at that point of time. So I think there's class of aspirations, interests. So if you keep pushing on ethnic identities or ethnocentric political agendas, I don't think, it's like calling again for violence. So I think there should be, I agree that there should be administrative rearrangements that can be suitable for all the communities of Manipur, not necessarily exclusively for Meiteis. I also don't like the idea of like exclusively meant for Meiteis also. it should be arranged according to the aspirations which would be built by the consensus of every communities. So I believe in that idea.
All right. Thank you so much, Ransom. Thank you. I'll come back to you with another question. But for now, I would like to ask Mr. Peter Ardani, the founder of Hills Hornbill Express. Um, our two guests here, they have shared their opinions on the separate administration, which has been demanded by the Kuki-Zou community. We have listen to the opinion of guests from representing Kuki-Zou community and also of the Meitei community. Would like to get to know the perspective from the perspective Naga perspective. The Nagas they have we have our different political aspiration, and like we have discussed earlier, I've mentioned earlier, this ceasefire extension to Manipur was also opposed strictly. Opposed by the Meitei community, and it was removed. Do you think this time, when the Kuki-Zou community are demanding for a separate administration, do you think it will affect the political aspiration of the Naga community? Do you think the Kuki-Zou community's demand is, legitimate? Do you think they deserve to have a separate administration, like Lalboy mentioned earlier? Do they deserve a union territory with a legislature? From the Naga's perspective, Naga's point of view, what would your opinion be?
Thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah. Uh, we have heard different views, different points of uh, discussion from Lalboy and then also Mr. Renson. Now, coming to Naga's perspective about separate administration, see the present conflict that has gone to the extent of 18 months with frequent killings, with frequent disturbances, and then the situation getting even worse. And then you see, even the women and children are not spared at this moment. I don't mean any specific community in this, but strongly against the involvement of women and children. Let us accept this fact that this violence have not brought any justice, any solution to the conflicting community, both Meiteis and our Kuki-Zou brothers. Now, it has also have indirect impact on the Nagas also. Just that, right now, my importance, my view that is being projected before the discussion is, we don't want to focus on something beyond what is not achieved right now. That is the resolving the conflict. Let us not go beyond, jump above something which we have not even achieved, and then start talking about separate administration or a different administrative setup right now. My humble appeal to both the community is, let us focus on resolving the issue, how to come to negotiation table, how to create an environment where both the communities will come and sit on a table, be it in Guwahati, be it in Bangalore, be it in Delhi. What we have not achieved today is resolving the issue, for which I, as a Naga, a neutral community, who is also a indirect victim of this conflict, would like to put before the discussion is, let us resolve this matter first. Because without resolving this, tomorrow, where are we heading for? Are we still looking out to kill those women and children, the innocent civilians? Are we still expecting the central government to come and resolve this matter? No. Every community has their own aspiration, political aspirations. Whether it is legitimate or not legitimate, it is up to the government, like Mr. Ranson has put it. But the fact is that until and unless we resolve this first, we cannot proceed ahead. Because tomorrow, the Nagas are going to pass through the Kuki areas to reach Imphal. Meiteis are going to pass through the Kuki areas to reach the Naga areas, or vice versa. Or the Kukis are still going to cross Imphal to reach Churchandpur. Now, with this complex setup that we Manipur have, and the kind of conflict that is being spiraling out to different areas and affecting everyone involved and those not involved, like the Nagas, are we still talking about something which we are not able to achieve it, but still want something more, which I feel it's still immature to talk about separate administrative setup, to talk about a separate administration, because if we have to really implement in letter and spirit the District Council Act 1971, we are supposed to be enjoying the fruit of the District Council Act 1971 if the decentralization of the powers are already being given to ADCs, that is in the hill districts. That itself was something that could have sustained us. But we are not able to even get that. This also comes to our discussion here, that even when we have something already in our plate, we still want something bigger. This is for the arrangement that is within Manipur. The Nagas have their own aspirations, the Indo-Naga peace talk that has been dragged on for so many years, so many decades. Now, should we prolong this without resolving it? Should we add another already to the wounds? Or are we still trying to explode the whole thing that it becomes unmanageable? So I feel my point here is, let us resolve this first.
Okay.
After resolving it, after sitting together it, let us try to talk about what can be done in the coming years.
Okay.
Because the call is not ours. It is the call of the center that decides, actually.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter Adani. I'd like to ask you another supplementary question. You have mentioned about solving the issue first, coming together in a table and negotiate with, involving the two parties. What do you think is the immediate step, to take up this a negotiation, to come to a table together? Who do you think should take the initiative? Who do you think is not, or is there any party who is lacking interest to come and, have a dialogue together? Is there any party to be blamed to, or why are the two parties reluctant to come together and have a dialogue and resolve the issue? Or do you think the Naga community has a role to, be a uh, peacemaker in this solution? In this conflict, and how do we take up this issue?
Definitely, the Nagas as a neutral community here in this conflict is and can play a major role in bringing both the communities, in both the warring communities. We have formed a peace committee by the government. The lists were out. So many intellectuals, so many politicians, so many names were included. It was a big number. But the saddest part is that we were able to insert certain names, list out certain names, but without knowing the root cause of that issue, or those personalities without understanding the present conflict here, or those members are not even consulted before being listed out in the peace committee. My point here is, let us create an environment by bringing out certain personalities, certain people, consult them, take their opinions through video conference, even if they cannot come to Imphal, like especially the members from the Kuki-Zou brothers. Have the video conference, have them, consult them, and form a very strong peace committee. Then let the Nagas take the lead in bringing both the communities, not necessarily the politicians. Politicians, after 5 years, they will go away. But this effort of resolving the whole issue has to remain, and it has to go on. The damage has to be mended.
Okay.
My point here is create a very strong, a dedicated, a committed members of peace committee who are available. I'm specifically mentioning who are available, who are ready to put down their egos, their attitude, their ism, and then come to table. Because there are people, there are intellectuals who only wants to talk about their community. But at certain point of level, my appeal here is to the Meitei communities, to the Kuki-Zou community, that at certain point of negotiation, you have to remove certain conditions. So until and unless you shed some of your conditions, you cannot come and sit together.
Okay.
In which here
Who do
the
you think
Naga can
who
play
do you
an
think
important role.
is the best community or organization or a department to form this peace community? Because I feel that if the government of Manipur sets up the peace community, the Kuki-Zou community would be reluctant to join it because they feel that they don't have any, I mean they don't trust the government of Manipur anymore. So do you think the Naga community is best suited to form the community, or I mean the peace committee, or is it the central government that is the intervention of the central government that we have been waiting for?
Uh, See, here the involvement of the Indian government is very, very vital here. I'm not saying the Manipur government should be there uh, on compulsory basis, but the involvement of the central government is very, very important, and the involvement of the Nagas here. Because tomorrow, if you start putting conditions that ashi yaoba yade, ma yaoba yade, ashi lo thuo, adu lo thuo, if we have too many of that, we'll never be able to come and sit together. That is what happened in Delhi recently, that our Kuki-Zou MLAs refused to sit with our Naga, Meitei MLAs. Unless and until you shade off, you remove certain conditions, you cannot come and sit together.
All right.
I put here, as for the Nagas, you have the UNC, the civil organizations, certain representation from the Naga organizations, then Naga politicians come together, then pick up some politician from the Kuki-Zou community, some intellectuals, and then some CSOs from their Kuki. Then similarly to the Meiteis, come and sit together in Guwahati or Delhi or even video conference like this, and then start the whole thing. The ice-breaking effort has to be there.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter. I'll come back to you in a while. Thank you for sharing your opinion. I'd like to come back to Lalboy. Just as Ranson said earlier, the separate administration demand of the Kuki-Zou community looks dangerous because it is, ethnic based. What would your response be? Because the demand is exactly as he mentioned, it is only for the Kuki-Zou community. And later on, what if, like he mentioned earlier, the Paite, the Mars, what if they demand for a separate administration, considering their different ethnicity? So what would your response be? Because you were mentioning about an example, taking the example of Puducherry and all. So what is the difference, and why do you think this is the ultimate solution to end this conflict?
Okay, I think there's so much to say from both the co-panelists have said. But coming first to your question on this is not a good idea to demand SA, and then that could lead to another bloodshed. I have an answer to that, because separate administration, for that matter, is constitutional. Okay, first of all, let me put that as priority. It's constitutional. Prior to the onset of May 3rd, what happened was there was a negotiation between suspension of operation and also the central government, right? There was a bipartite, and in fact, tripartite agreement or talks between the state government and the center and the Sioux leadership dispensation. And the demand was territorial council under sixth schedule of the Indian Constitution. Now, Ransan, yes, ideally, I would have all loved to live, peacefully with the rest of our counterparts in Manipur, the Meiteis and the Nagas and the Pangals and the Tamils and various other indigenous groups. But if you look at the history of India and the creation of certain northeastern states in India, for example, Meghalaya, which is a tribal state, Jaitia, then the three big communities in Meghalaya. Yeah, this is also ethnicity based, right? And you also have the creation of Mizoram. You have the creation of Nagaland. These are, I think, classic examples of how states are created because of their, so to say, ethnicity-based political aspirations that they have. Now, why wouldn't that be possible? Why wouldn't that be feasible? Because when it is constitutional, the fact that, like I have also reiterated even in the mentioned in my earlier discussion with you, Soren, that we should also remember how the Métis secessionist groups have been demanding a separate county park, right? So, which is unconstitutional for that matter. But still, everybody has the liberty and the freedom to demand and have their own aspirations, yes. But now, post the conflict, TC, Territorial Council, within the ambit of the Manipur administration, Manipur government has been upgraded to separate administration because we have been separated. That's why I'm saying again and again, we have been separated totally, total separation. And one more thing that needs to be emphasized is also, like I keep saying, and I want to reiterate it again, is the historical political injustices. For example, you have in the delimitation of constituencies, you have, for example, Pungyur AC in Ukhrul district and Chandel constituency, and Saitu and Saikul combined is bigger than the entire say constituencies of Imphal Valley in terms of the geographical size. Okay, but when it comes to the number of allocation of say seats, you see 40:20. We don't have to. I don't have to go into details. 40:20 is the seat allocation. Now you see, for example, hill constituencies have got large number of voters. For example, in certain constituencies, there are around 45,000 voters in one constituency, whereas in Imphal you have 35,000. The difference is 10,000. Okay, 10,000 voters difference. Why all this stepmotherly treatment and injustices meted out to the tribal community? Now I'm not talking from the side of say of the Kuki interest, but also talking about the tribal interest. Now, also, how these states, for that matter, are created. You'll see, you were asking about how, Ransom was pointing out about how if separate administration was given to the Kukis, what will happen again to the Paites and these and that? Who doesn't have family disputes, family problems? Is there any, say, 100%, 100% peaceful state or country in the world? No, not even forget about state or state or country. Talk about your own faith and denominations. In Christianity itself, in faith-wise itself, you have a lot of disagreements. But that doesn't mean we cannot coexist, right?
All right.
And like I said, in the case, take for example, in the case of Mizoram, which is a tribal Mizo state, you have the Chakmas, you have the others demanding for, say, another autonomy. And in fact, they're granted autonomy under the sixth schedule. They're granted autonomy within Mizoram itself. And also you'll see in Meghalaya itself. Now, we should also understand the difference, the fundamental difference between the tribals and the non-tribals. Now that the Manipuris are non-tribals, and the Kuki, the Nagas are tribals, and our interests are different for that matter, and political aspirations are different for that matter. And now that we have been separated totally, why do we keep resounding this pessimistic view about separation, that there will be bloodshed. Like I said also, Soren, why should there be bloodshed? If
Yeah.
you can negotiate
Uh,
for peace, why
All right,
not
Lalboy,
negotiate
I'll
for
just, I'm sorry, I'll interrupt you there. The separate demand for separate
one more point?
administration is constitutional. It is legitimate. Yeah, as per the constitution. But yeah, what Ransom mentioned earlier was there will be bloodshed. Yeah, I want you to answer to that. Why do you think? Why do you think there will be bloodshed? And will this? I mean, in case if the separate administration demand of the Kuki-Zou community has been granted, how can the bloodshed be avoided in case if that is to happen? And considering the history which has the incidences which has happened in Manipur, this bloodshed, if for example if the separate administration is to be given to the Kuki-Zou community, there might be, yeah, not this might not just be between the Kuki-Zou community and the Meitei community, because due to the geographical area, due to the no, we don't have the exact boundary of the Kuki, the Nagas, and the Meitei at the moment. So there's a high chances of the Nagas getting involved into this issue as well. So what do you think would be the solution to get the separate administration peacefully without, having a bloodshed between these three communities?
Okay, let me frame my perspective
Wait,
this way.
Ranson, the question is for Lalboy. That is for Lalboy.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
I'll
sorry.
come back
Okay.
to you, Ranson. Yeah.
Okay. See, when I say separate administration for the cookies, I'm saying this because pertain to the ongoing conflict and violence, and the reason why we are gathered here today to discuss about separate administration, right? That is the reason why I am focused only on the cookies. Now, for that matter, I am not I will definitely vouch for a separation for both the three communities, because what I see is even if separate administration is granted for the cookies, the Nagas also will not stay idle. I know that seriously,
Right.
and in fact, uh, in order to make this argument more strong, I like to answer what brother Peter has actually said. You need to set your conditions, right? You need to set certain conditions in order to create a conducive environment for both the stakeholders, all the stakeholders, to come and talk and negotiate. See, we have this problem has already gone out of proportion, and you know that, brother Peter. And see, setting of conditions now. In fact, we have nothing to set now. Actually, why I'm saying this is because why? See, if you look at the demand of the NAC and IM, and also the idea of say Greater Nagalim, Pu Muiva is not able to set any condition against the Indian government, right? That's the reason why this thing has continued to perpetuate even today. Yeah, that separate constitution, separate flag, which are actually unconstitutional, but still he make his conditions. Now the conditions that the Kuki-Zou people make is not unconstitutional, something that is really viable and that can be dialogued and negotiated. So yeah, coming back to the point of why shouldn't there be bloodshed, or let there not be bloodshed in separating the three communities, is is what I also want. Because if I have been saying, if we can negotiate for peace, if we can negotiate for these communities to come together, why not negotiate for separation peacefully? And I keep saying, please understand that there is a fundamental difference between, although we are one citizens, that the tribals and the non-tribals interest have the interest that we share. All of these are different. And now, for Manipur to thrive, really, Manipur to thrive, it's like, I don't know. You don't want somebody in your house. You have kicked them out, okay? You have kicked them out, but you still call them back to come to your house, to come and stay with you. Is that, a wise way to deal with your neighbor or a part of your family, a family member? I mean, why not stay as good neighbors? Definitely, don't you want the other communities also to thrive? When I say thrive, it means a lot. And Ransom was indeed, you have picked certain history of ethnic conflict that the cookies have been embroiled in. I understand, like I've said in my earlier discussion also, how you have to look at from the angle of how the cookies have become uh, generational victims of generational conflict. If you look into their terms, you'll see how victimized they have become and how they badly need to rebuild themselves. And as a citizen of India, I think anybody deserves to, a platform, a pedestal for them to stand up and
Yeah.
rebuild themselves and contribute to the larger good of the nation.
All
And
right.
that's why
Yeah.
separation doesn't necessarily mean bloodshed. Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
optimistic that we can definitely talk it out without any bloodshed.
All right. Great. Yeah, Lalwa, I'll come back to you. Thank you for sharing your opinion. Yeah. You mentioned about the Abakar Muiva, Twinglam Muiva. His, yeah, uh, the NSA and IM's political dialogue, the journey, and all. Uh, Recently, I came across a video where he said the history of the Nagas is unique. So the solution of the Nagas should also be unique. That is what he said. The flag and the constitution demand of the Nagas might not be in the constitution, but India is a sovereign country and it can always make a sovereign decision. It can always do that. That is the understanding we took away from there. All right, I'll come back to you with another question, boy. I'll come back to. I mean, I want to ask Ranson now. Ranson, you mentioned about the difficulty in giving regional autonomy or separation, um, considering the ethnicity. Recently, in the X posted by PG Dambaram, he suggested he suggested of giving this regional autonomy to different communities in order to have a stable and a peaceful, harmonious environment here in Manipur, which means he want a separate administration, regional autonomy for the Kuki-Zou community, the Naga community, and also of the Meitei community. That is what he mentioned. So, in your opinion, if this kind of regional autonomy is not provided to these communities, what do you think would be the solution, especially to the tribals? Like Lalboy mentioned earlier, there has been opinions, of course, with statistics. There has been disproportionate representation in the Manipur legislature. For example, yeah, like Lalboy mentioned earlier, for example, the Chingai constituency in Ukrul, it is almost 50,000, or it has crossed 50,000 in a assembly constituency. The Pungyar assembly constituency alone in geographical area is bigger than the Imphal Valley constituencies. For example, in some constituencies, the a constituency can be travel around in a bicycle in a day and then it's over. But constituencies like Pungyar assembly constituency, lots and lots of issues. But yeah, let's not go to that. And also the funds provided allocated in the budget of the Manipur Assembly has also been an issue for the tribals of Manipur, stating that there has been a stepmotherly treatment to the hills, which constitutes almost 90%, around 90% of the total geographical area of Manipur. So these are some of the facts which led to the separate administration demand of the Kuki-Zou community. And also, for example, yeah, like brother Peter mentioned earlier, the Article 371C, which has been enshrined in the Constitution of India, uh, for example, HAC, the Hill Area Committee, which has to be empowered, and with that autonomy, the hill areas could enjoy autonomy. But the government of Manipur has been you know giving stepmotherly treatment to this HSC as well. The ADC, which has not, the election has not been conducted since 2020. So it's almost 4 years now. So these are the issues that tribals has been facing. So if the separate administration or the regional autonomy to be give, is the giving to the tribals is not the solution. Ranson, in your opinion, how do you think the government of Manipur or the people of Manipur can live as one, given and equitable growth? Yes, in terms of growth in the economy, and in everything, with the having a proportionate share of everything of the state. What do you think are the solutions for the tribals of Manipur?
Brother Lalboy has also much focus on separation. It's not only about separation. Like if we talk about families between the subgroups of Kuki community, Kuki Paite, we can talk about families who are intermarrying, like the intermarriage between Kuki communities and Meitei communities. What about them? There are many Kuki families and Meitei families who are helping each other to escape from one place to another, who help them. There is no total such as like total separation as such. I would like to deny that first. Then talk about this developmental grievances about hill and valley divide. I think it's not to blame the Meiteis, because Meiteis are not the one who created the state. I think it's the Indian constitution, the Indian state, that framed the state. And again, the division between hill valley divide, when we look into the history, it goes back to the colonial period. So during those period, the administrative authority was given to the tribals for their own regions, and for the Meiteis, their political jurisdiction was given to them. And there has been like non-uniform kind of administration. ADC in the hills, municipalities and Gram Panchayats in the valley. It's like non-uniform. These are some of the factors that deepens the hill and valley dichotomy. And more than that, I think we have to address the grievances, developmental grievances. We have to, for example, when you say hill valley fund division, I think even in the Manipur Legislative Assembly, I come across this article called like written by one of the journalists. So I found this article that even in the Manipur Legislative Assembly, the funds are uh, given in the form of like in the division between hill and valley. There is no mention of what areas are covered in hill part, no, and even in the valley part. So since Imphal comes in the valley part, I'm not saying I'm not denying that there is disproportionate, but the way it is funded. So since Imphal comes into value part, whatever the capital projects, because Imphal is not only for the Meiteis, whatever developmental projects comes in Imphal, maybe like any governmental projects, like big capital projects, it will come in, it will be included in the government funds that are meant for the valley part. So of course, so the right way to compare disproportionate funds would be what kind of funds are, like how much was invested in Chujhanpur, how much was invested in Taubal, or how much was invested in Chandel. That would be the correct way to, I think, address the developmental grievances, because this was not because of the, it's better to understand how this hill valley dichotomy was sustained by this state. The kind of state formation that roots back to, colonial era, and it was again followed by an Indian state. It's not like, you cannot entirely blame the Meiteis for that, because all the communities are responsible for making the state. And it's like, the families, if Kuki Paites are the brothers, Meitei Kukis are also brothers. At one time, we all have been co-depending on each other. There has been coexistence and codependence on each other. And good neighbors, we are still good neighbors. We have been good neighbors. We are still good neighbors. We are family, not necessarily neighbors. It's like we have been like that. It's like historical. There has been historical proof. Even like when you go back to Hauke P.S. Hauke Zalengam, whether it's true or false, he says that cookies are indigenous. There is two kings he mentioned, Kuki, Hongba, Kuki, Ashoba, who were helping the Manipuri kings or something. I'm not remembering everything, but I somewhat remember that they are also part of it. Like they are not exclusive. They are also indigenous. And even the language, Kukichin and Manipuri language, they are all the same ethno-linguistic group. So like what kind of separation, so for the administration grievances, so for example, take the example of UNC. UNC still doesn't recognize the district boundaries set by Ibobi government. It still rejects the Kangpopi district. So when you talk about, when I said bloodshed, I don't mean about like killing each other on like killing spree. There has been class of interest, aspirations, territorial class, which is not reasonable to segregate them on the basis of territory. What if I say that the demand, like the resolution, what about the Meitei people chased out from Chushanpur, from like Kumuzamba? So I think the right measure should be come to a dialogue. There has been ethnic homogenization of one place. It's not just kick out from one place to another. I am totally against the transfer of population from one place to another, from like not only for one community but for the both of the communities.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
not reasonable, and it's like because of the class of aspirations. That's
Ranjan,
what
yeah,
I'm going to say.
yeah. Thank you. I'll interrupt you here. And you
Mm,
are, I mean, in your listening to your opinion, you don't support the separate administration demanded by the Kuki-Zou community. Then, for
mm.
the Kuki-Zou community to live together as one in the state of Manipur, what do you think would be the, yeah, when they come to the negotiating table, what do you think that the government of Manipur should propose to them for them to live as one in the state of Manipur?
First, I would say that the government of Manipur is like total failure in maintaining this violence. They are not able to monopolize the violence. So in this state, in this thing, in this time, I think the Indian state has to intervene, either maybe impose precedents or whatever means is necessary. They have to
Okay.
like they have to impose laws. They have to first douse the flames.
All right.
They have to stop the violence. Negotiation would be a long way ahead. I don't want to talk about like
Okay.
negotiation. It would be very
Do
hard
you
for.
think removing Biren Singh as the chief minister or imposing president's rule in the state of Manipur is an ideal solution? Because, like you have mentioned, the state state is responsible for the failure
Hmm,
of maintaining law and order in this state of Manipur. So, do you think
hmm.
those two options, removing CM Biren as the chief minister of Manipur or president's rule being imposed in Manipur, could be a solution?
So I would like to say this way: removal of Viren, if necessary, remove him, or if imposition of president rule is necessary, impose him. The main thing that's necessary is to impose rule of law, the legitimate use of violence. The picking up of guns from both the communities, where the youths are armed from like head to tooth, from head to foot. I mean, it's very dangerous in this kind of situation. So the situation is like both the communities are very polarized, highly polarized. So it's very hard for both of the communities to come to a dialogue. So for them to come to a dialogue, the Indian state has to intervene, either remove Biren Singh or imposition of presidents or whatever means is necessary to monopolize the violence. They have to do that.
All right.
After that, you can talk about political demands, whatever legitimate or it's constitutional. So if separate administration is constitutional, preserving Manipur's territorial integrity is also constitutional.
Okay.
And I have said in the earlier my one in my earlier statements that the Treaty of Ziri is also protected by the international law. So there has been class of interest and aspiration. This should be segregated from ethnic violence. Political demands and political difference should be one thing, and ethnic violence has to be one thing. We
Okay.
cannot club this together, and you cannot say that separate institution should be the solution to ethnic violence. So
Okay.
what about the so like would that even meet the like I mean there will be many people deaths or killings. Would that be would they do this? Would giving separate administration do justice to them who are already killed because of this conflict? The violence has to end. Whatever measure is necessary, do that.
Okay.
After that, political aspirations and demand has to be intervened by the Indian state, and both of the communities have to come to a dialogue. That's very necessary. That's my
That's
statement.
a very interesting opinion you have shared, Ranson, and I think that could be taken up. Just before I move on to the next guest, when you mentioned about the when we were talking about disproportionate representation or of the fund allocation and all, you mentioned about Meitei communities not to be blamed too. Yep, of
Mhm.
course, the Kuki-Zou community and Naga community also have their elected representatives and their politicians in Manipur, present in Manipur. But
Mhm.
considering the fact that the disproportionate representation in Manipur legislature is 40 to the valley and 20 to the tribals and 19 for tribals and one for SC. So in
Mhm.
legislature, those who has the majority always has the control over it. That's the how the democracy works. So, for example, if the Meitei communities are asked to reduce the number of legislatures in their part and increase the tribal communities, I mean the number of legislature. For example, in most of the valley constituencies, the voters will be around only 20, 30 maximum. It doesn't
Mhm.
reach 40,000 at all. But in the hill areas, it is almost, I mean, 40, 50 in that population
Mhm.
voters. I'm talking about voters. Yes, constituency is not I mean, it's not by the valley, I mean, the area, but by population, the voters. We agree to that. But even considering the voters, number of voters. That is how it is at the moment. So do you think the Meitei community has to, compromise a little bit, come down a little bit, so that the um, differences between the hill and the valley could be, compromised a little bit? Do you think the Meiteis has a step forward to be taken, instead of blaming the tribals?
So formation of constitution, like I mean, constituencies would be one thing that should be based on delimitation and thing,
Yeah,
and that's up to the state. Not like I mean, up to the state doesn't mean that the state should, I mean, uh, should not consider all those demands. The state should consider, and the Indian state should consider all those demands based on surveys on all those necessary things. And I think when you say 40 constituencies for the Meiteis, you forget three Pangal MLAs who are from Lilong, Ketrigao, Wawagai. It's like very wrong. And these seats are not reserved for the Meiteis also. Any Naga or Kuki can come down to valley constituencies and stand up elections.
yeah, yeah.
But for the Meiteis, they
General,
cannot
yeah,
do.
not for,
Yeah,
not reserved,
yeah,
general
it's not
seats.
reserved. But those 10 seats in Naga constituencies and Kuki constituencies are like reserved. So on that way, I think I would say that like a serious administrative reform is necessary to increase the seats or whatever requirement is important for the
Yeah.
Kuki communities to address their developmental grievances. I wholeheartedly agree that. But how is a separate administration solution to that? That's my, I mean, the thing.
Okay. All right. Yeah. We'll come back to you, Ranson. I think Brother Peter is having an internet issue. We'll come back to him. But when you mentioned about anyone can come and contest in the, assembly constituencies in the valley, could be the same as, for example, Biren Singh can contest in Delhi as well, which is unreserved seat. But I don't think he has a
Mhm,
chance to be elected there, right? So I
mhm.
think that would be a bit unreasonable. Um, Give me just one moment. Actually, I wanted to come back to Peter, but he just left. Let me see what his issue is, and I'll come back to you. Okay, guys. Now I'd like to ask our brother Peter Adani. We have heard about the Kuki-Zou community, the Meitei community. We have heard different opinions. Yeah, different opinions coming from the two communities. Yeah, personal opinions as well. Um, there has been accusations and allegation as well that the Naga community and the Naga leaders, the legislators, the
Yeah.
politicians, the social workers, the allegation is that we are not doing what we are supposed to do. Instead, we are being used in this conflict, or we are taking advantage of the conflict, personal interests. I mean, personal, which is of their personal interest, and that we are not doing what we are ought to do to solve this issue, and then we are trying to take maximum advantage of the issue for ourselves. That is one of the accusations which have been in the social medias. And also, um, when it comes to the the issue, the accusation is that the Naga MLAs, the Naga politicians, are coming together with the Meitei community, the Meitei leaders, or the government, and that they are siding with one particular community, that we are being neutral just for namesake. What would you like to say about this?
See, the kind of allegations, the kind of uh, narratives that are being put across against Naga leaders, Naga MLAs, and then taking advantage of the situation is uh, quite interesting and quite uh, uh, what do you call confusing, because at this point, am I audible?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Yeah. Because why am I saying interesting and why am I saying confusing? Because if the Nagas are to take advantage of this present situation, let this be very clear to our two communities who are actually in the conflict. If the Nagas has to take advantage of this situation, the Nagas will in all out start taking advantage, vent out their anger, vent out their history, the political advantage or the ethnic advantage that is being placed before us during the Kuki-Naga clash in 90s, in 91, 92. We could have taken that advantage of taking back our lands. That is there in Kangpopi areas. That is there in Saikul areas. That is there in Saikul. In More was the dominant. The More was dominated by the Nagas. Let us be clear with that. It was started in More in 1991, 91, 92, when the government, R.K. Dorendro, sponsored the Kuki armed groups. Today, if some of the Kuki armed groups are existing, they are wholly sponsored by certain political leaders against countering the Naga movement, against the NSNIM's movement. Nagas has to take advantage. We could have joined the conflict. As I have placed before my statement, Naga community is also indirectly affected. That you see the problem between the Senapati CSOs and then the Kuki groups in Kangpopi area, burning of trucks, burning of vehicles in Naga areas, shooting of farmers that recently that we saw here in the valley, near the
area,
hills. Yeah. Then comes how the Nagas are being threatened, and then how Nagas have been beaten up in Tamai IT road. Now, if we have to take advantage of this, many things should have been done. Let us not forget those Kuki-Zou brothers who were rescued, who were removed, who were released from Sajiwa jail in exchange of 2 Maitais, were pure initiative of certain Naga legislatures. Here, I must say, the Nagas have exercised maximum restraint in not involving into the conflict by restraining, putting up restraining, and then CSOs coming to the rescue. And then certain intellectuals, certain leaders, certain CSOs, even among the both the communities have actually instigated so much to join the conflict. But the Nagas have not taken that advantage. Naga should have erupted with different kind of political demands during this conflict, be it against the Kukis, be it against the Maitais. But I think Nagas have also exercised that kind of gentleman way of dealing the situation, exercising certain maximum restraints as a neutral community. The UNC have clearly stated it as a neutral community in the part of the conflict.
Okay.
I wanted to come back to point of Mr. Lalboy, who have stated so many points on the situation, the conditions of what the NSNIM have placed in the Indo-Naga peace talk. Let us not compare the Kuki movement, Kuki land movement, or the separate administration movement with the Indo-Naga peace talk. The level of that talk, the level of that involvement with the political demand, the level of negotiations, the level of the agreement that is being signed with government of India compared to temporary signing of Sioux agreement cannot be compared. My first point. Second point, the Nagas talk may be pending, but when it comes to any arrangement, any political arrangement that have been done with the other communities will solely depend on the ancestral boundaries, the traditional boundaries that the Nagas drew actually. That is why the controversy of this new district rollback issue has come up, especially in Kambupi area, in Sara Hills. The NSNIM or the UNC or the Nagas in Manipur know the magnitude, the gravity of this situation. That is why the UNC is involved into talks with MHA rather than taking advantage of pushing ahead with so many violent agitations or with so many other techniques that we have seen in the past. The Nagas in 2010, after the infamous May 10 incident when Avakra wanted to enter Manipur, it was the government, the Ibobi government, which blocked the coming of the NSNIM leader to Somdal, his own native village. Yeah, 2 innocent souls lost their lives. Many women were shot. But that memories have not gone away. Here, that was in the year when Naga People's Convention was held in Sanapati, and then the alternative arrangement, demand for alternative arrangement started, which is similar to the separate administration that the Kuki-Zows are asking today. With this conflict, I must say, we cannot just come to conclusion of demanding something or for a political autonomy or for a separate administrative setup. Just that, we still have lots to do in resolving it first. Then comes the negotiation part for any demand. I never said it is illegitimate. Under the constitution of the country, you have every right. You have every right to think of aspiration and then asking for any kind of separate setup. But my point here is, let us first come together. It is the negotiation, resolving the present conflict precedes any political aspirations that you have. My third point is, the Naga CSOs, the NSNIF have continuously, repeatedly reminded that the political boundaries, the ancestral boundaries cannot be compromised at all levels. That is why the demand that has been placed since so many years continues to be one of the crux of these whole negotiations with the UNC or with the alternative arrangement or with this one. The kind of grievances that Mr. Lalboil has expressed against the certain community or the Manipur government on disproportionate development or centralizing all the developments, the major developments in Imphal Valley, is something very true. It's a fact. Nobody can deny that. You're talking about some glorious history of sports of Manipur. But if I suggest that the cycling stadium or the hockey stadium be in Sanapati, or the football stadium be in Imphal, and the swimming stadium, indoor stadium be in Tamenglong, or good facility, indoor track facilities be in Chandel or in Ukhrul, or rims be in Imphal, JNIMS be in Ukhrul, or another medical college be in Sanapati. I mean, proportionate sharing of all this developmental proportionate development in all districts actually will bring. That is why here the crux the crux of our whole issue is that it is not only on political aspirations alone. It is also on developmental. It is also an ethnicity. The complexity that we experience in Manipur is complex that tomorrow you're blaming one community and the other, or the government blaming another community. I mean, the circle is huge. My point here is that
All
Yeah,
right.
and then my last point
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
that Mr. Ranson has pointed out that the colonial setup, administrative setup that see from the colonial period till today. I mean, we have come to uh, this level of generation where we should do away with these colonial rules and regulations and the uh, ideas that it's been placed since the colonial period. We cannot blame that. We are living in a educated, uh, well educated, well versed with our history. That the tribals in Manipur are also among the least developed community in the country.
Yeah.
And then the disproportionate uh, uh, constitution of members in the Manipur Assembly is not proportionate. It is purely injustice politically. It's 40-20, and you still expect the tribals to fight for their rights in the Manipur Assembly, which is impossible. Let's accept that fact. That's why a community, different community demanding different political aspirations. Then comes the complexity of the whole thing. This state experiences
All
is
right.
something uh, we cannot discuss, we cannot comprehend in a very brief, in a gist way. But that let us accept certain fact that things are laid before us, and then that we need to sit down together first, resolve it, and then come. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, Brother Peter, thank you so much. You have shared so many interesting points, and then I'd just like to ask one supplementary question before I move to the other guest. We are discussing about the disproportionate representation, um, difference in development, infrastructure developments in the Imphal Valley and the hill areas. And when we talk about this, the opinion from the Imphal-based communities would be the representatives from the hills, which means not just the Nagas, but also from the Kuki-Zou community. We have had, yeah, from the Naga community, we have had two chief ministers in the name of Yamuso Shaiza and late Yamuso Shaiza and late Rishan Keshing. We have had MPs, we have had ministers, so forth and so forth. We have politicians. So the opinion is that you have your tribal MLAs, you have your own MLAs, you have had your ministers. What are they doing? Why didn't they raise this in the assembly? Why couldn't they do much? This is the response to the disproportionate representation. So when they say this, do you think we the tribals have certain amount of blame to be given? Because it has been alleged that the politicians tend to work only for their personal gain. That is the kind of accusation it has been alleged on them. Uh, do you think, yes, we were talking about the 40-20 representation. So do you think this representation is the issue behind everything? Do you think our MLAs, the tribal MLAs, the tribal MPs, minister are powerless in the Manipur legislative assembly? Or could they do much more than what they have been up to?
Yeah, definitely. They can do more than this. I put it that way. I put it that way. Because when you visit certain departments, there are also MLAs and ministers, especially from the tribal community, who are not even well versed with the budget that is in Manipur Assembly. Now the blame on us. That is, let's focus on the bigger aspect of how the budget that is concentrated in the valley and the projects that is concentrated in the valley in the hills is seen in a bigger picture. My example is you can back or you cannot maintain a road in a hill district between two village compared to that 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers of just constituency that cover up one single constituency. In the hills, with that 1 crore of rupees that is being sanctioned for a road, you cannot even totally connect blacktop, give a tip-top condition from one village to another village. Condition. My point here is the kind of injustice in the fund allotment. With that 1 crore, you are able to blacktop that 10 kilometers tip-top the valley. Now, if we do all this comparison, I think the injustice is also seen there. Recently, the works department released certain funds for the valleys which were damaged, for the roads which were damaged, minus the funds that is in the hills. Then after a few days, due to certain so many CSOs and so many individuals rolling up in the social media, the department was forced to rectify that.
Right.
And the part that I saw there was so many ongoing projects which were already sanctioned and the ongoing projects to compare with the funds that the value.
Okay. Unfortunately, our brother Peter, his connection got lost again. But however, once he joins us, we'll resume with his discussion. Meanwhile, I'd like to come back to Loudboy. Our brother Peter and Ransom, they have been opposing in a certain way to the separate administration demand of the Kuki-Zou community. Do you think that is the only ultimate only demand of the Kuki-Zou community, or do you think if the separate administration demand is not been granted, what are the options available? Do you think the Kuki-Zou community should also come up for negotiation, just like Brother Peter said earlier? First of all, resolve the issue, and then the demands can come later. Is that the path you can also follow, or do you think the SA is the only demand that the Kuki-Zou community is looking forward to? What are the, if there are any other alternatives, what could it be?
Yeah,
I
let
think,
me.
yeah, please continue.
The question was meant for me, right?
Yes, of course, yeah.
Okay. Uh, I'm nobody to say this is the only option, because there can be other options available as well,
Yeah,
but it will
your
certainly
personal
depend
opinion.
on. Hello.
Yeah, your personal opinion. Yeah, can you share?
Yeah, so it's a personal opinion, and certainly it will depend on the negotiating table, what is discussed and what is being negotiated, and what is the way forward will definitely spring forth from the dialogue, right, between the stakeholders. But for me, certainly what I see for a larger and a longer and a permanent peace in Manipur is to separate the three, like it or not. I think and I see this is the only way forward. Because if you compel the community to stay under one umbrella and roof again, what will happen is there can be, fallout of conflict again in, say, in a year or two, or otherwise someday in the future. For example, let's say the 1993, though I don't like to pick this as an example, but the 1993 conflict between the Nagas and the Kukis in Manipur, um, has today died down. The possibilities, because of the unavailability of social media, just like today. What if social media was easily available at that time also? The visuality that we enjoy, at the palm of our hands. I'm certainly, I'm sure that, that pain and the anguish, the scar will still be fresh. But today the scar has healed because of that. Now today in the modern, with the availability of modern technology and the kind of coverage that has gone, this far, I don't think putting the two or the three together, or the two especially, the cookies and Meiteis together again, would be a bad idea, really. And it's not going to heal very soon. It's going to take ages, generations after generations. Yeah, and coming back again to substantiate what I'm saying, why it is pertinent that separate administration be granted to the cookies. But before I do that, I like to mention one thing. I like to answer Brother Peter, although he's not here. He belittled the suffering of the Kuki-Zou people in this conflict. I mean, how could he say, how could he state that you cannot compare this peace talk agreement between the IM and the separate administration demand of the cookies? If he said so, why is he comparing the separate administration demand, the anguish, the pain of the Kuki people, when everybody has been kicked out and butchered and murdered in Fall Valley? Why is he saying that you can? Why is he comparing that to Honorable Muiwa not being able to visit his hometown Somdal and the fallout of that, conflict? Somehow the violence happened and then few casualties. I mean, how could he compare that incident to this incident? I think that's very amateur understanding of the grievousness of this violence and also the conflict. And now, to substantiate why ASA is pertinent is because, like I said and briefly mentioned also earlier, is because this is not mere fight between a community. If it was a mere fight or a conflict between a community, it would have been easy to resolve. Let's say if Chief Minister Biren Singh was, a neutral person, and who has engineered and devised all these things, we all know it is Biren Singh at the helm, right? And how he has radicalized the group, and how things have actually been building up since the time he became the chief minister. I'm not denying that there were problems in the previous government, but to this magnitude and the kind of the quantum of violence that we have seen and witnessed, I mean, these are all the building up of his intention to annihilate the Kuki people. And he has said very clearly in his audio leak that became viral. I mean, you also have heard, all of us have heard, right? And that's why he, being the head of the government and radicalizing a community against the other, that's what is the crux of this violence. And that's what the crux of the demand of the Kuki people for a separate administration. Okay. If the chief minister, how can the chief minister come as a mediator, to allow to raise a platform for the Kukis and the Meiteis to come and negotiate? It is impossible because he was the head and he was the leader.
So,
and that's why.
Do you think removal of Biren Singh and imposition of president's rule could be a good step towards solving the issue?
It will not solve the issue. It will not solve the problem, but it will douse the problem to a certain extent.
The issue.
I think it could be a step forward to lay a table for negotiation. Okay. Why would the president's rule be? An antidote to the problem now. We have been demanding for PR in the very beginning itself, but vehemently opposed by the other side. But today,
Biren being the CM of Manipur is a stumbling block to solve the issue.
I think that's what both the communities feel, and it has become to be strongly felt by the Meitei community also, that Biren Singh as the chair, holding the chair of the chief minister is never going to solve the problem. Okay. And in fact, he has already created a mess, and to clean up this mess is going to be a very difficult one. And president's rule, I don't know if it will solve the problem, but then I'm hopeful that can be, with the removal of the chief minister Biren Singh at the helm, could prepare a ground for, a way forward for dialogue. And lastly, I did talk about this thing for why separate administration, and otherwise, how do we build up for negotiation is, like I said, buffer zones are being kept today, and it is being maintained, right? Buffer zones are being manned by the central forces. And in fact, this has to be respected. There has to be status quo from both the communities. Every violence that actually that we have seen is all because of the intrusion of the buffer zones by the other group from the valley side. And the perfect example was the incident that happened in Jiribam. Because any sort of, say, uh, civility is being, being brushed off. Why? Because look at the peace agreement that existed in Jiribam. There was a peace agreement, right? Zairon village was a small village which is sandwiched by the other Meitei villages. But the peace agreement was brushed off, and that's how intrusion from the other side into the buffer zone, beyond the buffer zone, is what led to the spiraling again of the violence in Jereban. So if status quo is maintained, if the central forces and Bahrain, being the command, is able to maintain the buffer zones properly, I think if there is seeming peace for at least 3 to 4 months, I think we can definitely prepare a ground for dialogue and negotiation. But right now, when things are at mess and everybody is boiling, to the point, I don't think to talk about anything will be fruitful at this moment.
All right.
That is,
Oh boy, I'll come back to you, and then yeah, we have been discussing for a while now. We're almost coming to the conclusion. I'll come back to you for your concluding remark. Meanwhile, I'd like to ask Ranson. Yeah, we have discussed enough of the separate administration. Meanwhile, while we're discussing, there are still lots of fresh violence happening in almost every day, and then the issue has when we are thinking about solving the issue, ending the killings, it has fresh violence has been happening again and again, like we have discussed earlier. Even innocent children and women are not spared this time, um, and even amongst the youngsters, there are rumors that even not being in a front line, the hatred between the two community is increasing. Do you think these things have been these things could be a stumbling block in solving the issue? And then what would you suggest the two youngsters from the two communities? What would be your opinion in order to come to, because you have been uh, vouching for both the communities, especially the leaders, to come forward in a negotiating table and end the issue peacefully. But if this kind of hatred between the two communities, especially the youngsters, keeps on increasing, the chances of solving the issue becomes slimmer. So and then listening to your opinions, um, I feel that you are a person who dislike violence, who is moderate, and then looks forward to a peaceful solution. What would you think the youngsters should be doing at this moment, instead of writing in the social media, spreading rumors? What do you think our youngsters should be doing? What would be our roles and responsibilities at this moment?
I think, Brother Swarindang, I think the animosity and hatred has been deepened not only by the political elites or like certain leaders of both communities, but it has also been deepened by the media because a lot of fake information, propaganda, interest. So I think it's very important to find out fake information, what's verified and what is not. And it's like up to us. And I think we also have much focus on stories of hatred, killing each other. There has been enough stories about saving each other during the conflict, but no one has covered that. Our memories of this conflict should not only be about killing each other. Our memories can also be the way how we can build a future is all can also be based on how we collectively help each other during this time of crisis. I don't know, I still think that there are many cookies and Maites who are still in talking terms in their phones who used to be neighbors. That would be one thing. And number two, the state has to establish rule of law. If the state government is not able to establish a rule of law, it's the Indian state that has to intervene. And the thing that Indian state still do not remove state government is that they are keeping this as a state proxy government. If the Indian state comes into directly handling the situation, I don't think they are ready to handle the situation. They want to perpetuate it. One of the central leaders says that the kind of culture of this conflict is primordial, which means they have been fighting, they have been like this. Even the center sees us sees Mighties and Cookies fighting as primordial. We are fighting from prehistoric times. It's very I would say, racist from the mainlanders' point of view. The rule is very racist. They think that we Kuki and Maites are fighting from prehistoric times and we have never been in peace. This is a very agenda, and the hatred and the division has been structured institutional wise and infrastructural wise. We need to address those grievances. And second point, most of the political leaders are men. Let the women of both communities move forward, represent their interests, because men resort to violence. I'm not saying about like against men or anything else about that, but I think let women of both communities speak up. And again, the idea of like I'm not coming just because I'm not coming to separate institution. Just want to point out this fact. Cookie MLAs and Mighty MLAs were invited by the Ministry of Home Affairs on October 15, I think, if I'm not wrong, and they have agreed to put their efforts on dousing the flames. Not about like they haven't come to a negotiation, but I think that was a good start, even though it was late. Again, the Ziriwam incident happened, unfortunately. So there has been no proper and honest, sincere efforts from the Indian state to stop the conflict. If there was, because now even the Manipur conflict will have repercussions on Maharashtra elections. Once this they dismiss the government, it will be very hard for the present MLS to win back again. So I don't think they don't want to tarnish their image because of the elections. They only work based on their electoral benefits. So I think that's a very bad thing. Again, also our political leaders, elected representatives, not the CSO leaders or certain political elites, are they acting on the behalf of people, or are they just representing certain political ideologies or ethnocentric ideologies? So, for example, when the Kuki MLAs who came to the meeting, they said that they have to, their opinion is not different. They are like, they will be just following the demands of KNO and UPA. So my question is like, is the separate administration demand because of this ethnic violence, or is this just a continuation of a longer dream of pre-existing demand for separate administration in the form of state Zalingam or separate state or Greater Mizoram or Kukiland, whatever. Like I'm not saying that it's not legitimate or it's not deserving for all of these things, but these are demands made against the state, not against the Meitei. But the aspirations are clashing. That's one thing. But I would say that even for the Meiteis or Cookies, if nations are built or states are built on the basis of ethnicities, that will only call for bloodshed because the aspirations have always clashed. So I think the violence has first to end, and let the women of both communities speak up. Let the memories of helping each other come up. Otherwise, if we focus too much on hatred, we cannot just beat those memories of families, intermarriage, children. Like there are a lot of those stories. We should start rebuilding from that and first stop the violence
Okay.
and pick up the guns, or like I mean, uh, stop the youths from like picking up guns. First, there has to be rule of violence.
All
So
right.
that would be my
Yeah,
yeah
thank you,
response.
Ranson. I'll come back to you for your concluding remark. Lalboy and Ranson, and of course, Brother Peter, unfortunately, he left due to internet connectivity issue. Yeah, this is one of the issues, many issues, not just the violence, but this is the kind of the reality that Manipur is facing in other cities, in other countries. They are trying to go to Mars and live there in the moon and live there. But now, in a state like Manipur, we couldn't even have a 2G, 3G connection so that we can have a proper online interaction. This is the reality. We should also be, worried about these basic things as well. Lavoy, I'd like to come back to you just before that. On behalf of Brother Peter, when he mentioned about not uh, comparing the Naga issue and the current essay, which has been demanded by the cookie, I think he was not comparing it exactly when he was mentioning about the um, incidents which happened in Mowgate and others. He was, I think, narrating the incidences which has happened, and that when he mentioned about the not being able to compare between these two, Naga's political history has been going on for a very very long time. The separate administration, if it's not if it's not the exact opinion which has been shared by Ransom just now, where he mentioned about the cookies demand for greater Cookieland or Zellingham. If it's not for that, the separate administration pop up just because of the incident. So I think the time frame and the kind of because the kind of negotiating, for example, the the ground rules of the NSCN-IM and the government of India's their peace talk, the condition laid down for the peace talk is main 3 points. They are the peace talk should be unconditional. It has to be at the highest level, which is the prime minister level, and the last condition is at the third country. That was the conditions laid down, and that has been the condition. So I think the narration about, I mean, the stories about the incidents about Avakra Muiba trying to visit his native place. I think it was just narrating the incident. I was. It would be better if Brother Peter had been here to respond to your comments, but unfortunately he's not due to the internet connectivity. But when I was listening to the his comments as the host, as a moderator of this discussion. That is how I understood. So we'll try to have a better discussion in depth, in details, in the episodes to come. But now that we have come to the end of this discussion, I'd like to give a couple of minutes each to the two of you to end this conversation. Loudboy, first of all, yes, there has been aspirations and demands from the Kuki-Zou community, and yep, your aspirations, your opinions have been shared by you in detail as well, which we really appreciate it. And then the comments which I'd like to give to you here is the demand for separate administration, the demand put forth by the Kuki-Zou community is legitimate, it's constitutional, which we all agree. But like Ranson and Brother Peter mentioned earlier, they are vouching more of a peaceful negotiation first, resolve the issue first, and then the demands later. But we want to listen from you. We want to hear from you what you, I mean, as a community, as the Kuki-Zou community expects from the Meitei community and also from the Naga community in order to solve this issue. What do you think our leaders, the Naga leaders and the Meitei leaders, should be doing? What do you think the masses of the Naga and the Meitei should be doing at this juncture in order to solve this issue? And also, if there are anything both communities could do in order to um, help or assist the demands or aspirations of the Kuki-Zou community.
First and foremost, I think the Rambai Tengos, the radicalized groups emanating from the valley-based insurgent groups, all these things, lumpen elements in the valley should be kept or put at bay. Once there is silence, I don't think, as far as I understood, the Kuki-Zou people or the Kukis have never ventured out beyond the buffer zones to create havoc in the valleys. It is only defending and retaliatory measures that has been taken by the Kukis. If the Meitei government, if the Mirin Singh government can keep the, all these lumpen elements at bay, I think that's a way to peace. And when I say way to peace, it also means paving a way for negotiation and dialogue. Unless you keep these guys at bay, nothing is going to happen. Positive is going to happen. And secondly, uh, regarding the things that our Naga brethren can do is obviously, um, as much as they have remained neutral thus far, it is also important that not just remaining neutral, because they have to play active role in trying to feel, you know, empathize with those people who are suffering from both the communities, and actually build trust uh, from both the communities. And for example, uh, what is disheartening is how there was a unilateral decision taken up by all the Naga MLS of the Hill Area Committee regarding the election of ADCs without any consultation of the Kuki-Zou MLS. Something like that is very negative, is creating a very negative impact on the fellow tribal counterparts in the hills. So this sort of things should not take shape. Rather, like I said, rather than just acting or staying as a mute spectator, they have to play an active role in trying to actually heal the wounds, like by building trust. Go visit them, and see how things are, right? I think that way, to a certain extent, when the cookies uh, have say are able to see that there is some positivity beyond mere political gimmick, then certainly, then when that trust is built, I think to a certain extent they can lay a table and be responsible in laying a table for the metis, the cookies to come and actually start talking. And another point could be, uh, like I have said before, there is no sane civil society in the valley. Why I'm saying this is because from before the start of the violence, how narratives were being built by the civil society, and Chief Minister Biren Singh gave the freedom to spew hatred against a certain community, and Chief Minister instead took advice from the civil society, and then he will instantly arrest anybody, any Dick and Harry, just because of a Facebook post. All these things that happened, Soren, if you remember.
Yeah, yeah,
And that was how that anger and hatred was actually boiling, within the Kuki community against Chief Minister Biren Singh. And they ran up to at some peaceful rally that was actually organized by both the communities. But why was the other community singled out? And with the audio leak tape that has come viral, it has been established and has been testified that it was Chief Minister Biren Singh's agenda to annihilate the cookies from the soil of Manipur. So these things, that is why I'm saying these things has been already been instilled and has been reinstated in the minds and hearts of the Kuki community, and therefore it is going to be very hard. That is why the Naga brethren must actively play, because India, when during the Second World War, non-aligned movement, they didn't join the non-aligned. I mean, they did join the non-aligned movement, right? And they didn't join any party. But although many people say they were neutral, no, India indeed played a very important role in actually bringing an end to the Second World War by joining the non-aligned movement,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And lastly, Soren,
yeah,
I want to clarify this very important point that people continue to make a mistake, because the paitas are also cookies. Cookie is a nomenclature. I am a dongel, okay, and I take a sorry, at my tribe, I take a tribe certificate that is any cookie tribe, okay, which was recognized in 2022. Um, Thado, any cookie tribe, paites, the Gangtes, the Simte, the Mar, they are all cookies. If you look at the history, all cookies. It's just that, yes, we cannot avoid. People think that the Thado speaking, the community that I belong to, the Thado speaking, okay? I'm not saying Thado tribe, I'm saying Thado speaking community, as it was already enlisted as Thado language, so I cannot run away from that. And we being the most dominant community, even amongst the Kuki tribes, people think that we are exercising, this nomenclature, to show our supremacy, amongst the uh, other cognate tribes that belonging to the cookies. So this has to be understood that cookie means everybody. We don't want cookies also, really.
okay,
Like I said, since we cannot stop anybody from, building that community feeling in the name of by naming themselves as something, we, in order to be inclusive, we did include that Kuki-Zou, but then historically, all of us are cookies. Just like the Nagas, when you say it includes the Tankus, the Aus, the Angamis, the Rongmeis, the Riangmeis, all of these things, right? It is a nomenclature,
yeah,
and it is, in fact, a nation. That's what I like to call it.
yeah.
And I think I will end with that one. And one last.
All right.
See, very unfortunate incident that happened in Jeribang, where the 10 Mar cookies were killed by the center forces, because that was extrajudicial killing. So such type of incidents should not happen again. Center forces should be neutral here, here. Anybody trying to cross the buffer zone for now should be neutralized. That is their role. If central forces are, say, biased towards the other community, the extent of shooting and killing,
Yeah,
because their mandate is to protect the civilians and protect the warring communities. So if those things continue to, say, sporadically happen also, it is not going to lead us to a positive end. And the way forward is for them to be remain neutral, and the Naga brethren to play a very active role, not a neutral role.
All right.
And anything lumpen elements emanating from the valley should stop. And I don't think that if these are maintained, the cookies will never come. We'll never risk our life because we don't have the resources like the Meitei do. We will not risk our resources to come and venture into the valley and create havoc. Really,
All right.
you have seen, and this is testified in the opening of the national highways even till today, right? So thank you, Soren. That's
Yeah,
that much
likewise.
I would like to submit. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, there are lots of things to talk about. So many things to talk about. Hopefully, we'll be able to discuss in the episodes to come. This is just the beginning, where this kind of interaction we learn from one another, and yeah, this is a way forward for us to solve the issue. All right, thank you, Lalboy. Ranson, I'd like to come back to you for your concluding remark. I'd like to I asked Lalbo, I'd like you to mention about your expectations and your suggestions to the people of not just the Meitei community, but for Kuki community and also to the Naga community. What do you expect our leaders and also the people to, what would be their roles and responsibilities in order to help solve this issue? And also, yeah, let us not at the moment, yeah, just the concluding remark so that we can end this conversation. And if there's any personal opinion you'd like to add to it, you may do so.
Yeah, I think, brother, I mean, inside the Cookie MLAs and BJP MLAs are colluding. I think so. I don't know why. I just suspect that they are colluding inside.
Okay.
They don't want to take the responsibilities. They don't want to control their people. They don't want to take decisions. And they are just in the same government. They are not resigning. The BJP MLAs are also not resigning. In fact, they are not resigning from the government. It's like, in fact, supporting the government itself. The same goes for the Mighty MLAs. They don't speak anything against Cookie MLAs. The Cookie MLAs also don't speak against the BJP MLAs. They don't want to take the responsibilities. I don't know what's going on between these MLAs. And the thing is that, and I think it's a responsibility for the CSO leaders to come to senses. Like, I mean, they should really take the initiative forward and pressure the government to establish a rule of law. Because the situation has come to this, that the youths are highly polarized. And there is no discussion of right and wrong. You cannot do this moral justification in this type of violence because it has reached far-fetched. So I think the best way to end the violence should be establish a rule of law by any state. That should be the first. Then it's the responsibility for the leaders to guide their people, communities, to stop investing from certain political agendas, sectarian divisive agendas, and resorting back to build a dialogue between the two communities so that they can live so that they can coexist and codependent on each other. So as I have said this before, I have also put this before, let the women of both communities move forward because their voices are not heard at all from like since the beginning of the conflict, what they think about. Let the memories of helping each other also come up instead of spreading, killing, in the media all the time. These are some of my things, some of my positions that I will have. And like the recent imposition of a FASPA, I don't understand why some of the academicians from the other community support, because I don't think the other community hasn't faced the wrath of a FASPA because a FASPA was imposed to end the Naga and Meitei insurgency, Meitei-led Manipur secessionist movement, what you call, like whatever name you can call it. But I think the kind of, instead of a FASPA, I think there should be another, because a FASPA is a very draconian law. You have seen Oting massacre, you have seen Operation Blue Ward, Operation Summer Storm. It's like gross human right violations, and the army will go away under the protection of law. So I think there should be another kind of law, which is like very strict law from the security forces that should be able to establish a rule of law. So yeah, the Indian state should take the responsibility for this. If they cannot control state government, then it's the responsibility for them. And I also believe that instead of the academicians from both of the communities, they should stop producing highly ethnocentric political ideologies. They should try to build up some kind of peace building initiatives and vision. I was very happy when after 2 or 3 months after the conflict, one cookie professor and one mighty professor joined hands together and released a picture that they call for peace. I would like to see those kind of professors, academicians, instead of spreading academic jargons with deep hatred, creating more division. I don't like that.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Ranson, Lalboy. It's a pleasure having the two of you in my show once again. And the kind of opinions you have shared, the kind of information you have shared here, it's very, very valuable and enlightening as well. Thank you so much, Brother Adani, Peter Adani. Unfortunately, he left us due to the poor internet connectivity in his area. Thank you to you two as well for sharing your valuable information, your valuable opinion to us. Youngsters like us should come forward and interact one another. This kills the rumors around. We get to share information personally like this, and we get to learn from one another. And I believe our viewers will appreciate the kind of information we have shared here. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Hopefully we'll be able to discuss on more important topics in the days to come as well. Thank you so much. And also to all the viewers, thank you for joining us on this interaction. And I would also like to request you, when you comment on this video, kindly comment sensibly. Like Ransom mentioned earlier, it is very important for us to use the social media responsibly. It is in our hands to spread positive messages, positive information, or to spread hatred, or to being a carrier or a carrier of venom in our society, which we do not want to do it. So let us be responsible citizens. Let us take up our responsibility as an accountable person, and then try to help resolve this issue in every possible way. Let us try to reduce this animosity between one community. Let us try to encourage one another positively, and try to have the harmonious environment in this state. Thank you all so much. See you in the next episode. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much.